So, I mean, it makes sense once you recognize that she's a Saudi princess and media's not going to touch that. Eden has indeed passed away. Her father is wealthy and has close ties to the Saudi government, obviously. Obviously, I don't agree with trans rights activists.
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. But I do think that this person's life was important. This is a tragedy. And part of it is religious conservative values and our immigration policy. In this war on wokeness, in this culture war, in this, transgender, there are people that are victims, and there are trans people that have problems. And there is a story that I'd like to share. I don't know how it's going to go. Maybe some of you turn off. Maybe some of you are upset by it. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that you're not going to hear this from anybody on the right side of the culture war. You're not going to hear a fucking blip about this. Probably only going to hear this from trans activists. I'm going to start with a rest in peace to a trans activist. Yes, to someone that is a trans person that was all for the political things that is being completely put forward. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to bury the lead. I'm going to read her Twitlonger post. She was gone for a couple months on Twitter, and then she wrote this post. And then we will read the follow-up to this, because just as much as I hate these, maybe not just as much, probably less so, as much as I hate these Marxists pushing forward this bullshit on our children and our schools, this, critical gender theory, all of these problems. I also hate the lack of empathy for the people that are in these situations and many of the unintended consequences of right-wing, immigration policy and laws, and, the lack of respect for people that are adults that want to go through with this and acting like they don't have a right to their own fucking bodies. So Eden, I don't know if you know who Eden is. Eden is also goes by the Twitter handle. Well, spoiler alert, went by the Twitter handle, Cyber Angel Fairy, TRA person. I'm from Saudi Arabia. So let's read this, because I think this is an important story to share, even if it isn't the side of the culture war that you normally see me on. So this is the final message. Hi, if you're reading this, I've already killed myself. I've given life every opportunity. I've given myself every chance to get better. But I couldn't do it. I wasn't strong enough. I don't think there was a universe where I was ever strong enough to survive this. Why? Sometime in the summer, I was contacted by Michael, cybersecurity guy, through an IRL friend who claimed he was a fixer and wanted to fix the issue that was between me and my parents. I thought this was impossible. I'm transgender and they are strict conservative Muslims, but I decided I would give it a shot because it can't hurt, right? Laughing my ass off. Over the next couple months, I'd called Michael and his associate Ellen. These calls seemed innocuous and honestly pretty helpful. It was mainly questions about my safety and whether I had my needs met at the place I was staying at. Towards the end of my stay at my friend's place, I'd witnessed a traumatic event and was already in a bad place mentally. Michael took notice of this and decided to push me to leave Georgia and move back to Virginia. Michael and Ellen, along with a Saudi lawyer named Badar, I don't know, met me at the train station. I was taken to a hotel and allowed to experience DC. Genuinely was optimistic and believed this could work. God, I wish I wasn't so fucking stupid. At this point, the only person in that group that I was in contact with was Bader. We'll just say Bader. If I'm butchering it, sorry. The Saudi lawyer. Bader, throughout this entire time, in his weird way, tried to get me to detransition. First, he pampered me. He got me an apartment temporarily. He took me out to eat. He took me to therapists. But over time, the more conversations I had with him in person, the more I realized what he was trying to do. He tried to get me to be normal. He gave me examples of feminine men and said that they are transgender, but they are hiding it. That it's better to hide it. told me stories personally about people he knew that successfully hid it. Repeated constantly that I can just hold two lives, the female me and the male me. Fuck the female male versions, but regardless. Constantly said I looked like a man, always talked down on my appearance, bought me masculine clothing and tried to throw away all of my feminine clothing. At every step of the way, he tried to detransition me. I had a breakdown over this and bombarded Michael and Ellen with texts about what was happening. They did not respond. I did not realize fast enough that was happening because I'm fucking stupid. At a certain point, I realized I was entirely dependent on Bader for food and shelter, and that if I ran away, he could easily find my location. Since I was illegal, I would have just been deported to Saudi Arabia. I subconsciously gave up. I was too tired. I did everything he asked. I cut my hair. I stopped taking estrogen. I changed my wardrobe. I met my dad. And then I had another breakdown. My mom kept telling me to repent or I was going to hell, and I did. I repented. I believed I was going to hell so much that I read the entire Quran front to back in a couple of days, crying the entire fucking time about what a disgusting thing I am, and I didn't sleep. I repented and I was broken. Bader then booked a flight back to Saudi Arabia and I came back. The first month was fine. Okay, even. I was on edge the entire time. But I was treated like I was going to run away at any second by my family. Then came the second month. At this point, I was subjected to daily searches of my belongings. My mom searched all my electronics whenever she got the chance. I was berated for being a freak when my mom found my private photos. My dad called me a failure and an abomination. I was told that Michael, Ellen, and Bader were actually all specifically hired to get me back and that there was no escape from my situation. I was destroyed, but I wanted to keep going. After the first time they found my HRT, it was traumatizing, but I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to live if I couldn't transition. Then the second time came. After that, I took a month break off HRT and got back on it. They have found my HRT again, and I'm done fighting. We'll get through this and we'll talk about it afterwards. I apologize, but this is someone's suicide note that we're reading publicly. I don't even know if I should be reading this, but I think it's important to talk about. I don't think there's a lot of people on the right that are going to talk about this at all. Wasn't always a good or even decent person. At times I was a fucking asshole and a disgusting human being. But there were times I feel like I was good. I don't understand why I was given this life with these circumstances. Every day hurts, every second stings. I've tried killing myself in the past, but every time I was still holding on by a thread somewhere deep inside me. I think that's why I survived them. This time I'm done. I'm tired. Message to the people I love, to my friends, to the people I chose to be my family, to my girlfriend, to everyone who has shown me kindness in this life. Sincerely thank you. You made an unbearable existence bearable at times. I'm deeply sorry I've disappointed you all. I wish things were different. I wish this message was a message about how I won, how I escaped and built a successful life, how I managed to get FFS, SRS, and beat my dysphoria. I wish I was speaking to you about how proud I am of myself to have done the impossible, but that's not my reality. I wish this world wasn't so fucking comically cruel. I'm actually laughing writing this sentence. It's unironically ridiculous how bad my luck has been the past couple of weeks. Someone just walked past my car and glanced at me. I wonder if they know I'm going to kill myself. I wonder what they would think about me if they knew who I actually was. I wanted to be a leader for people like me. That wasn't written to happen. I hope that the world gets better for us. I hope our people get old. I hope we get to see our kids grow up to fight for us. I hope for trans rights worldwide. Goodbye.
Well, that was brutal.
It's really brutal. I think it's important because so often when we're fighting this culture war against trans rights activists and we're fighting against critical gender theory and we're fighting for female spaces and we're fighting for our children to be able to discover themselves as opposed to being indoctrinated, and we're fighting against political movement, and you hear you hear the left talk about trans suicide, and it's very easily dismissed. It's very, very easily dismissed. And in some regards, it should be dismissed because, the studies are not there and the causality is bad science. It's pseudo-scientific garbage, the way that they say, everyone has, the moment someone says that they're a different gender, they're a different gender, immediately socially transition them. There's no efficacy in the way that these treatments occur. But I think it's also important to recognize that adults should have the rights to fucking do whatever the fuck they want to do with their bodies. And there's a golden rule in psychotherapy. And I know a lot of you guys, I don't do a lot of content on psychotherapy, which is weird because I went to grad school for it. But there's a golden rule in psychotherapy that the patient knows themselves better than you know them. You understand modalities, you understand sickness, you understand signs, right? But there's no better representation of the person in front of you than their own fucking words. Like you might understand the patterns and you might be educating them, but it's a process between two people because they know themselves. You can't tell them what they're feeling or what they're thinking. You can only tell them, thinking traps. You can tell them when their feelings don't match reality, right? But I can't tell you what you're fucking feeling. I can only tell you that feeling isn't right or that it's not healthy or that there are better ways to cope. This is a real person. And this is a person that is not just from a culture that wants to force its religious or conservative values on people, right? But it's also from an immigration policy. Like this person was trafficked. And the reason they were able to be trafficked is because of our shit immigration policies. This person should not have had to have feared being forced back to Saudi Arabia if they tried to run away. That is the number one way that sex trafficking is done. That is how sex trafficking works. Get them into a new country with no passport, illegally, and if you try and run away, you'll be deported. It's the easiest way to sex traffic people. And the fact that our country still fucking engages in that type of behavior, and I mean, obviously there are like leftist organizations and like NGOs that fight the government, while they're getting money from the government, that maintains the same fucking policies. Funny how that fucking works. Obviously they do good work sometimes. You really put in like, you really want to talk shit on the right for having any fight, and then you throw up a meme video while I'm talking about this on Dick Sucker meme. Because I don't think you're doing a good job of representing whatever political opinions you're espousing. We just read someone's suicide note. We're talking about some of those factors and why we need to be careful about the pendulum swing when the right gains power in these institutions, and recognize that there is a cost in lives. Regardless of the efficacy of transition, there are a lot of people now clamoring that we just get rid of the trans, that we just make HRT illegal. I was laughed at a year for saying that by Blair White. And now it's a popular fucking speech at CPAC. We must ban transgenderism from all public spaces. The ideology, it must be 100% or nothing. Yeah, you can privately be trans, but you don't get to fucking wear those clothing or take those medications or look that way in public spaces. Instead of just like, I don't know, fucking gender neutral bathrooms. Like there's a liberty and market solution to this. I'm sorry, but this person's an adult. They should be able to. This is a tragedy. And part of it is religious conservative values and our immigration policy. Without those things, this person would, I don't know if they'd be alive. I don't know. I don't know that. You redeemed an AMA to say the right's trans rhetoric is what makes me not want to affiliate with the GOP. But then you just paid to interrupt the stream while we're talking about this with a dick sucker joke. I just don't believe you. It's troll behavior. And that's fine. Trolls in chat exist. But don't be a troll and then claim the moral high ground. You can't do that. I just want to know if they succeeded. Yes. This person no longer lives.
Well, it says, right in the first two sentences there.
Yeah. So there's some reporting from trans activists on this. Obviously I don't agree with trans rights activists.
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. But I do think that this person's life was important. As I understand it, we can't fix others. The therapist is there to facilitate people deciding to help themselves as they understand themselves. Yes and no. You can institutionalize people. And then once they're institutionalized, you can kind of force that. I mean, it's a dark way of looking at it, right? But I mean, people do go to insane asylums, and there's really no other choice but to you either break or you either get with the program or you don't. And and if you get with the program, you can help it. But I mean, you're not wrong, right? The person has to want to change. And usually the people have to do it themselves. But, it is a facilitation of that journey. But sometimes you can kind of force people into a journey they wouldn't have taken otherwise. No Silver Ogre. Eden's dead. Eden was a transgender woman from Saudi Arabia. With the help of U.S.-based private investigators, she was trafficked out of the country 24 hours after her suicide. Major media outlets stay silent.
I mean, I'm not trying to be shitty, but that's not that surprising, is it?
I mean, it's not, but, to be fair, this isn't somebody with 100 followers, right? I want to say before this hit, they had 19,000 followers on Twitter. This was someone that was pretty active in the culture war and in communications, right? Especially because they had a unique perspective as somebody from Saudi Arabia, right?
Fair enough.
With a likely well-connected, very wealthy family in Saudi. We're probably talking about a Saudi princess.
Well, yeah, their family afforded at least 3 people to run an intricate scheme to isolate them and break them down and make them dependent to force them back home.
Yeah. So you're dealing with a Saudi princess, and you're dealing with a story that the right does not want to acknowledge. So the right doesn't want to acknowledge it. How do you think major media outlets are going to deal with a Saudi prince essentially forcing his daughter to suicide because of the culture war? You think CNN really wants to touch that fucking talking shit on a Saudi prince?
I think everyone learned their lesson after Jamal Khashoggi.
So, I mean, it makes sense once you recognize that she's a Saudi princess that media's not going to touch that shit. You don't fuck with the Saudis. I'm sure they would since they care. Yeah, I'm sure the corporate media really does care. Last night, Eden Knight, a transgender woman with many friends in the community, took her life. With her passing, she left a final message on Twitter about the circumstances that led to her death. Originally from Saudi Arabia, Eden was trafficked out of the United States, forced to detransition. She was brought back to Saudi Arabia and given no future where she could be herself. Final message reveals what so many transgender people and those who care about us have said for so long. For many of us, forced detransition can be a fate worse than death. It is with hope that what I tell you here will cause change, and that she will be remembered in her passing. And I don't necessarily think that that's wrong. I think we have to acknowledge that the state coming in and saying, you were taking away your HRT. The idea that like, I understand that a lot of the suicide rates is bullshit science, but when you have people that are already on HRT, you do real. And here's the other thing: many of these people talking about in this culture war, it's so hilarious how little they know, because none of these D-trans people just went cold turkey on HRT. Maybe Coley Cole might have. I don't know. It's hard to tell. She was young enough. But like, you take HRT long enough, you go to an endocrinologist for the rest of your life, even if you're D-transing, right? Like, you've fucked up your hormones. Like, it's not like you just snap back and take testosterone, let your body heal itself. Like, that's not how that fucking works. Like, D-trans people are on HRT even when they're D-transing.
Man, that is a gigantic decision to make at such a young age.
Yeah.
Do you want to take these pills every day for the rest of your life?
And this is why children shouldn't be fucking doing it. And this is why we need, like, look, here's what I really think about this, okay? According to libertarian philosophy, as best as I can tell, right? Giving this to your children, no matter what they say, and permanently damaging their bodies is reason for abandonment and child abuse. Problem is in a libertarian legal system that requires someone to fight on their behalf legally. Okay? Now, how do we determine the emergent will of a child in that regards? I think it's very clear that if psychologists and doctors that are to be respected and trusted are saying, look, this person has persistent gender dysphoria, has been saying this shit since they were 3 years old, and they're like 14 now. Hey man, it's been 11 years. They've been telling you every fucking day they're a girl or they're a boy, right? What do you do as a parent there? Are we really going to take those children away? I think the answer is probably not. And they're probably going to get HRT and androgen therapy. Probably not surgeries. The problem is, though, is that if any of those ever choose to detransition and say that was bad for them, those parents and those doctors are liable for damages, right? So if I'm a doctor and I recognize that if I say you should put your daughter or your son on androgen therapy, I recognize that if that person detransitions, I'm responsible for whatever care. I'm responsible for whatever care of restitution to their body that has been done. And now we're talking about endocrinology appointments, surgeries, damages, possible like weakening of the bones, cancer, death even, for the rest of their life. Right? The only way I'm doing that as a doctor is if I have insurance for that, malpractice insurance. And those insurance rates are going to be really fucking high if I'm not really fucking careful. If I'm not like, nah, I want proof that this was happening when they were 3. I want journal entries. I want videos. And I want 20 sessions minimum. So I don't really actually think that this will be a problem in a libertarian system, because you don't actually know what the emergent will of the child is. Or if you are an older doctor, like 65. I mean, true. That is true. You're right. Seems highly extreme for them to have come off it so quickly. Troubling story. Yeah. I don't even know if they were seeing obviously they weren't even seeing an endocrinologist. So like, I don't know what. It's very likely, if you think about it, not tapering, right? Not tapering, especially if they're on progesterone as well as estradiol and things like that. That you don't taper these things, it will do massive number on your hormones. And so I have to be curious if forced detransition really medically, like, it caused this suicide. Not just like, the psychological pressures, but just the chemical imbalance. I mean, we've all heard about people that take, I have a personal experience with it as well. People that get switched on their depression medication, right? Their selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And then they just end up killing themselves. This is why I think it is so important that we're very cautious, that we attack the ideology and not people, and that we recognize that individuals have rights, individual liberty, the right to do with your body. Like, I know it is so easy for us to see transformative social emotional learning and crazy gender theory being forced onto fucking kindergartners and go, fuck all of these people. We cannot be like the right, the far right. We cannot be like them. And we have to resist the temptation to say, burn it all down. Because when you do that, people die. And I wanted to share that story because, we do this war on wokeness every fucking week. Most streams we do this. I wanted to say, like, the dangerous game we're playing. Because we empower right-wing fascism as a swing to the other side. And when they get in charge, they don't want to look at the theory. They don't want to dissect it. They don't want to open the free market back in education so that parents have more choice. No, they want to burn it out of the institutions and want to create draconian laws to stop it. What do you think happens when that happens? People blow their fucking brains out.
And beyond that, just based on history, nothing else good comes from it either.
Yeah. So, of course, this part is from her note, so there's no need to read that again. Here's what I can confirm from independent sources. I don't know how much I trust this source. It's a trans rights activist anyways, right? So, very politically biased, and they don't have any named sources. So, take this portion with a grain of salt. Eden has indeed passed away. Her father is wealthy and has close ties to the Saudi government, obviously. Cannot corroborate the exact identity of her father, but the identity of an individual making the rounds on Twitter lines up with details I've been made aware of by a separate independent source with knowledge of the case. Independent investigators have also allegedly identified Michael and Ellen, a document that friends of Eden's have put together for journalists looking further into the events of her passing. Cannot confirm the authenticity of every part of this document, but having spoken to some of these investigators as well as reporters, they have made a compelling case. If the key details that have been revealed by multiple sources are found to be true, then Eden's death represents a serious atrocity committed to a transgender woman by people who are allowed to operate within the United States. Her death also represents a chance to make things right and a chance to show a commitment to transgender people within our borders. I completely disavow this sentence right here. I do not like this. Like, it is as much as I understand and empathize, I completely disavow this idea of like, well, look at the bright side. It's a chance. Do not make martyrs of these fucking people. Because that's how you end up with more suicides. No, they're not a fucking martyr. They quit. As much as I've waxed poetically, or maybe not so poetically about this situation, I'll say this, and this might upset sensibilities as well. You're a coward, Eden. You took the short and easy way out. Obviously, people cared about you. Obviously, you had connections. You had a girlfriend. Never give up. And I'm never going to fucking praise you for quitting. Period. You don't deserve it. Because you gave up. That's not something to value. Cowardice is not a virtue. I understand it. I understand how hard it can be to be brave. I understand losing that fight. I do. I think we all do. I think we've all lost people this way. But I'll never praise you for it. And I'll never say this is a chance to do things right next time. No, don't make a coward of these people. Fight. Fight. Even if your fight is a suicide in some ways, right? Like if you have to physically fight people and then you get killed for it, like fight. If you tried to escape the country and got locked up and killed, then I'd be like, you're a fucking warrior and you're a martyr. But not when you just take your own life. You got people to prove wrong. Exactly.
Yeah, usually martyrdom does kind of entail you being like persecutionally murdered.
I mean, she was persecutionally murdered in a way. She just gave up. It's a gray area for sure. I just don't want to make martyrs of people that do this. Now, this is something I can agree with TRAs on right here. Transgender refugees should be given full protection and a number to call if they are being trafficked. Asylum status should be granted liberally to this population who could face certain death if they are deported.
Trafficked victims, period. I would extend this to personally.
Yeah, but like there's a responsible way to like send people back to their home country if they're sex trafficked. Right?
For sure.
When your home country executes people for your identity, there's not really a responsible way to send you back to your home country.
Yeah, I just mean asylum and like you're not going to get immediately thrown out and like to the wolves.
Yeah, I mean like I'm for giving asylum to fucking everybody. I'm just not for paying for them to be here. You know what I mean? Like I'll let you live here. You know what I mean? Let some NGO fucking put you up in a hotel. Like, and that NGO shouldn't get any fucking government money and shouldn't legally be allowed to get money from other 501c3s or 501c4s that get government money. But so long as you're not getting government money, like, I don't care. Like everybody should be able to come here and should be able to stay here if they can work, if they can make it work. Eden should have been made to feel safe to reach out for help. Yeah. She should have been able, once she realized what was going on, she should have been able to run away without fear of deportation to fucking Saudi Arabia. For the love of God. How was that not already a thing?
Well, that's the power of the petrodollar, baby.
Likewise, transgender people in our own borders should be protected from state governments that seek to do to trans people what Eden's family did to her. Yes, but I do not extend this fucking right to minors. Right? Like if your state government is banning HRT for adults, you can. I'm going to try and contain my anger because the think of the children people that push those ideas are the exact opposite. Because all you do is support the right-wing pendulum swing that is terrifying to people and push people further into this ideology. And I don't mean that a person transing themselves is a part of the cult or the ideology. That tasty, tasty petrodollar. Of course. It always comes down to the petrodollar when dealing with Saudi Arabia. Forced detransition is not something that only happens in countries less tolerant of transgender people. States like South Dakota have passed laws making it this mandatory and specifically telling doctors how to do it. Mandatory for children. And yes, if you're telling doctors how to do it, yeah. It's still not something I like. You know what I mean? But I kind of feel like once you're already there, you're there. Like, and there's a lot more dangers with detransition, right? Like I'm okay with grandfathering in 16-year-olds that are already on HRT. You know what I mean? Like, it seems very weird to me that we're going to save you. And it's like, dude, they're already on HRT. Like, they're already seeing an endocrinologist. Like, this is going to be a process. Banning surgeries to minors is, like, so acceptable. Eden's words show the pain of many transgender people who are forced into circumstances similar to her. Sometimes medical detransition is forced on transgender people by bad family members. Sometimes it is politicians that attempt to force detransition on people. one string that runs through it all is that these people think that transgender individuals are wrong to be who they are. This is what activism against anti-trans legislation is for. This is what immigration activism for trans asylum seekers is for. Transgender people know where this path leads. Again, I'm kind of finding it hard to disagree with her. I kind of want to disagree with her because we're totally against, the way that they deal with minors. But like, what did she say that was wrong here? She closed her note off by saying that she wanted to be a leader for people like her. Her friends have told me many stories of how wonderful a person she was and how much she cared about the community. There's no transgender neighborhood, but save that for another day. She said that she wanted to see our kids grow up to fight for us, that she wanted to see transgender rights worldwide. Well, I don't want to see our kids grow up to fight for us, per se. I just want to see our kids grow up, man. Like, leave the activism out of discussions of the children, please. The only way we will ever see that is if we call for full accountability of those who seek to harm us in a future where we take action to protect transgender both within our borders and worldwide. Eden will do our best to make that world real for you and the countless others we lost along the way. I didn't really warn you guys about this. Maybe I should have. Maybe it was a bit much to just spring it on you in the war on wokeness.
It was abrupt, yeah.
But I did it on purpose. Right? Because I knew a lot of you would be here for the war on wokeness, and it's really fun and passionate to like go after all of this garbage, ESG and SEL and all of these things. But there's a human element here, and I don't know. I don't want us to be like tribalists. I don't want us to just. I'm not saying like I'm not changing my opinion or anything. Like I said, go back and watch the panel with Blair White. Like I was saying this a year ago too. We have to remember that these are real people here, and that like we're talking about the way that we deal with human lives. And this is why liberty is so important, is that there is no law that fixes this problem. There's no unilateral sweeping legislation that'll stop the move, that'll stop this. Be it from the left or from the right, laws and taxes and forced indoctrination, NGOs working with state funds and theft. All of that shit is bad, both from the left and the right. And so, I figured I'd read that story. Thank you for watching. If you made it all the way through this video, then you've got to like, share, and subscribe. Over 70% of you watching aren't subscribed, and it really helps. We're live on Twitch every Monday through Thursday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. And follow us on Twitter for more spicy libertarian takes. Finally, we all know that YouTube is a temporary place for dissidents. One day we'll upset the wrong journalists and be gone. Poof. But it doesn't have to be that way if you make sure to follow us on Rumble. Every video on YouTube is also posted to Rumble, and sometimes we exclusively stream there. Thank you for your time. All links are in the description below.